Story 1. Air guitar at a talent show. I was nowhere near cool enough for people to get in on the joke, and nowhere near confident enough to ham it up, so we're talking me and three similarly awkward friends on stage for 3 minutes, sort of vaguely miming guitar motions and shuffling our feet a bit. Story 2. Got really into vampires, to the point where I used to pretend I was one. In school, I thought I was so cool and edgy when I asked people what blood type they were. I wish I could punch younger me. Story 3. In the midst of my teenage emotional angst, I burned my dad a CD that literally only had the song Perfect by Simple Plan, and I played the CD for him one day after he got home from work. He had just gotten home from work and hadn't even put his lunch case down, and I just stood there next to the boombox, and he just stood there next to the boombox, and we both just stood there listening. I'm sorry, I can't be perfect. Story 4. I had a major crush on a girl. She was a huge Diet Coke fan. My brother was a big wig at a grocery chain, so I had 20 cases delivered to her house. They unloaded it on her driveway. Her father flipped, and she was scared of me afterward. Story 5. I let a dude pee on my foot at a party because I thought it would make me look cool and aloof. I was just known as Pissy Foot Girl until I blessedly moved far, far away. Story 6. Oh boy, buckle up. This one still makes me cringe. When I was about 13, I went through a hardcore horse phase. And I don't just mean I liked horses. I thought I was one. I was that kid. I was obsessed with horses in every possible way. I had horse posters, horse figurines, and I even read books about horse care, even though I'd never actually been near a real horse. But the most embarrassing part? I started acting like a horse. In public. I convinced myself and tried to convince my friends that I was part horse or something. I'd literally run around on all fours during recess, neighing, flicking my tail, which was just my hair in a ponytail, and doing what I thought was a majestic gallop across the field. When people asked why I was doing it, I'd just look at them seriously and say, I feel like a horse trapped in a human body, like I was dead serious. To make it worse, I had this weird habit of refusing to use normal people language during lunch. I'd only communicate through neighing or nodding my head like a horse, as if I was some majestic stallion too good for words. My friends tried to be supportive, but it was so awkward when I neighed at the lunch table in front of other people. I even begged my parents to let me eat apples and carrots like a horse during dinner. The peak of this disaster? One day, during gym class, we were playing soccer, and I decided it was the perfect time to show everyone my horse speed. I broke into a full-on gallop across the field, dodging players and, get this, neighing like my life depended on it. Everyone just stopped and stared as I pranced around the field, neighing and pretending to kick the ball like a hoofed animal. I'll never forget the look on my physical education teacher's face when she finally blew the whistle and asked, "Are you okay?" I thought I was being majestic, but I looked completely insane. Needless to say, the horse phase came to an abrupt end when my crush asked me if I was feeling okay after that whole gym class incident. The embarrassment hit me like a freight train, and I quickly retired my horse persona for good. But to this day, whenever I see a horse, I cringe at the memory of my 13-year-old self galloping around like a wannabe stallion. Story 7. My friend had a sweet 16, and I wasn't invited, nothing personal. The guest list was done before we were really friendly. So I jokingly asked if I could come if I dressed up like Gene Simmons from the band Kiss, and she said yes. So I went to a Sweet 16 where everyone was dressed in normal Sweet 16 attire, and I was cosplaying as Gene Simmons in full hair and makeup. Story 8. I kissed a girl awkwardly one time and thought that meant we were dating. I changed my status to dating on Facebook with her without even asking her. She explained to me that we were not. It is so painful to think about. Story 9. You are wearing a zip-up hoodie with pockets. The zip is open. Both hands are in the front pockets. While your hands are in the pockets, lift the entire lower part of the hoodie up and over your head. Rest your arms. They are now hanging at shoulder level like wings. You feel cool. I often walked like this. I have no regrets. I was probably full of cringe. Story 10. We had this little fundraiser fair every year at my high school. They had this little marriage booth so you could pretend to marry your boyfriend, girlfriend, friends, and so on. I thought it would be hilarious to marry my own hand for some reason, so I drew a face on my hand to do that puppet idea and married it. There were photos and everything. Thank God they're gone now. It somehow did not occur to me until years later that there are certain connotations to something like that. Story 11. Oh, nothing. I just recorded onto cassette an entire album full of awful trance music I made using MTV Music Generator, a PlayStation game. I made several copies for my friends, including my crush. I recorded a long, weird confession of my feelings at the end of her copy. And then nothing happened and nobody mentioned anything. She probably never listened to it. I was awkward. Story 12. I realized that I had to change my personality, and I wanted to be the straightest guy possible. So, I was originally going to be Barney from How I Met Your Mother, but I found out the actor was gay, so I instead used Tamaki from Our Own High School Host Club. The backfired. Story 13. Not in my teens, but in my early 20s, I had this really stupid obsession of doing the robot on the dance floor of a club. I wasn't trying to take the mickey or anything. I just really wanted to do it. Story 14. In elementary school, I was in love with a boy in my class. I didn't dare to say a thing to him, so instead, I kicked him in the crotch with full power and without warning. That got his attention. Story 15. Tried to give myself emo hair by tangling it and adding hairspray. Also drew mustaches on my finger with said emo hair and took pictures. Also wore ugly neon squared glasses in said pictures. Story 16. In the summer of 1984, I, along with many of my peers, thought we could all get beautiful golden highlights with the new beauty product, Sun-In. We all came back to school with orange hair. Story 17. Great idea, relative. So, where did you two lovebirds meet? Me. Online. After we realized that we both used to cover candles in red nail polish to symbolize fake blood. Super romantic. Story 18. Made a fake girlfriend, pretended to be her, faked her death, faked my own mental breakdown. I was such a loser that I'm still climbing out of the mental hole I made for myself. Story 19. When I was 15 years old, a friend and I stole a bathtub and sailed down a river. We went in the river for a couple of miles and then made a fire to dry ourselves. The fire turned into a grass fire, and the local fire department came and had to close the main road and the railway line and then put out the fire. All they found was a bathtub and the remains of a bonfire. Story 20. I had a very large golden jaguar earring with a fake diamond in its mouth that I believed was worthy of making my Skype profile picture. I was not very cool. Story 21. 14 years old, went on a family trip far away, got back and told my friends I had met a boy who did not exist. I have no idea why. It's like one of those teen angst movie cliches. Anyway, I had to kill him off when they wanted to meet him. Dirt bike accident. Most cringy. Oh my god. What on earth, younger me? You dork. Story 22. I want to preface this by saying I was only 12. I had the biggest crush on this guy. Literally thought I was in love. I couldn't even speak when I was around him. So I came up with a plan. I enlisted my friend to pretend that she supported us, thinking it might make him realize we'd work together. One time, I said to my friend in private that I wished I could hug him, and my friend diligently went up to him and convinced him to hug me at lunchtime so she could test out her one true pairing or something silly like that. I was like some weird tween mafia boss manipulating, through my friend, this very average-looking boy that I'd fallen in love with into hugging me. This boy had never even looked in my direction until then. Worse, after the hug, I emailed my friend, because I am old, best 5 seconds of my life. I cringed so hard because I was being fully genuine. People say getting old sucks, but I swear all the money in the world wouldn't convince me to redo that portion of my life. Story 23. I had a crush on a girl. Admittedly, we had only talked a couple of times, and one of those was just hanging around in a group of mutual friends. But of course, as a lonely, chronically online, socially inept teen, I didn't know how to actually express romantic interest in her like normal people do. I had never asked a girl out in my life, so instead, I wrote out a long, sappy Facebook post about how much I liked her and tagged her in it. This, of course, was at around 3 a.m. on a school night because of insomnia and internet addiction, which are both still in full force today. I really don't know what I was thinking or why I thought this would be a good idea. I woke up the next morning, or about 3 hours later, to the absolute chaos this brewed, and I realized I made a horrible mistake. I couldn't delete it now. The damage had been done. She stopped me at school that day and said she was flattered and I was very brave and all that. And then she blocked me and we never spoke again. She unblocked me sometime later, just in time for her to get married to some guy I always thought was a jerk. But as a nerdy, chronically online, kind of edgy teen, I thought everyone was a jerk. And now they have 2 kids. Probably 10 years have now passed. And after cringing so hard my face gets stuck every time this post comes up in memories, I finally deleted it. I wish I could delete everything I posted on Facebook before I was 18. I was such an idiot. I'd really much rather forget this ever happened. But somehow I keep getting reminded of the dumbest thing I've ever done. And that's coming from someone who's done a lot of really dumb things. But I did a lot of stupid things trying to impress crushes, besides, talking to them. Story 24. My first relationship in high school, the first time I went to her house, we went on her bed and I just froze. I couldn't bring myself to kiss her. Then I just rolled down the bed and went under the bed. I'm not autistic, but I don't know what I was thinking. We eventually kissed anyway. Now, 12 years later, recently I was seeing a girl, and she was so timid and didn't talk much. I really didn't know if I was supposed to make any sort of move or not. Took me back 12 years. Story 25. I was painfully religious and started a campaign where I would slap anyone who cursed around me. It only lasted a couple of days, but still, it was cringy. I also once told my girlfriend's sister to go back inside and pass out when she was at the door one night and doing a little drinking. She said, "I'm not drunk." I had zero idea how drinking worked. I had been taught that if you had one single drink, you were an alcoholic and a boozer. Story 26. I was so into Naruto. My best friend and I would talk about it endlessly and annoy everyone around us. We'd draw little pictures and have inside jokes, make up theories, just in our own little world. It was extremely embarrassing to everyone around us, and I would absolutely avoid myself if I ran into the young teenage version of me. But I still look back at those times fondly. Story 27. I went through a random stage where I would frequently blurt out a random word in an attempt to be funny, then say it was because I was so random. Yeah, that's cool. Sprouts. Why did you say that? I don't know. I'm just so random. I wish I could punch younger me. Story 28. I got really depressed at a school dance, as if I were personally moved by the lyrics to Stairway to Heaven, which was playing, and stopped dancing to sit moodily against a column and brood on the song while it played. I mean, seriously, dude. Story 29. In English class, when reading Romeo and Juliet, I would always try to get the Romeo lines if my crush had to read the Juliet lines. I later got her phone number from her friend and sent her song lyrics. I still remember the response she gave me the first time. "What is this?" It was strange. Story 30. Used to sneak around school to spy on all the boys I had crushes on. I eventually grew out of this phase, but occasionally catch myself spying on my husband because he is a cutie, and because you cannot trust anyone. Story 31. I wrote cringe emo lyrics up my arms in Sharpie my freshman year of high school. Really huge and bold too. I don't know why. It was far more cringe than cool, but I was expressing myself, I guess. Story 32. Got in a fight with a brick wall and lost. I was 14, and she seemed impressed when I mentioned I knew Taekwondo, so I demonstrated a few kicks on a nearby wall. Everything was fine. She was all, "Wow, neat," and giggling, but then I took it a step too far. I decided to end my showing off with a spinning jump kick, but was too close to the wall. When I kicked, it hurled me backward, toppling into her and knocking both of us down. My elbow landed right on her eye, and that was the end of the date. She laughed it off and said it was cool, but her eye was still swollen, black, and bloodshot 3 days later at school. She never talked to me again, making a visible effort to walk away quickly when she'd see me. That was the cringe part for me, how quickly things changed due to a simple accident. Story 33. I was involved in a particularly awful round of ding-dong ditch one night. My friends pounded on a total stranger's door at 2 a.m., just for fun. We did a number of crazy things that night, but that's the one I can't get over. Now that I'm a homeowner in my late 30s, I can easily imagine how terrified, unsettled, and confused that would make me if I were on the receiving end. Karma hasn't caught up to me yet. Story 34. I was a massive flipskirt. I thought I was such the sultry ingenue, but in reality, I was a cringy, dirty-kneed person with the subtlety of the Grand Canyon. Story 35. Went to high school in full Naruto cosplay, even spiked my hair. There were no conventions or anything. I just really liked Naruto. Almost 20 years later, I recently got back into Naruto. The only difference now is hoodies instead of full-on cosplay when I leave the house. Story 36. I was very flirty with a teacher, and I still cringe every time I think about that. A few years later, I started studying to become an English language teacher. The thing is, at my college, you didn't pick your own internships. They chose for you. And what internship did I get? One at my old high school. I managed to avoid that teacher for 2 weeks until one day I suddenly heard, "Hi, my name." I look back, and there he is, grinning like he knows I have been avoiding him. He was really chill about it, though.